The children of Israel, those descendants of Jacob, were still in Egypt. Their population was expanding, and they were practicing whatever they had of the religion of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. After Yusuf passed, other men took charge of Egypt. The kings of Egypt, they were called, each one of them was called Pharaoh. Just like every Persian king was called Kisra, and every Roman king was called Caesar. It was said that there was a pharaoh named Qaboos. This pharaoh passed away, and he had a brother who was harsher, meaner. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave him a very long life, 400 years. His name was Al-Walid ibn Musa'ab. But this one, when he came into power, he very much despised the children of Israel, and he persecuted them, and he made them taste a treatment unlike anything that they ever experienced. إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم. Indeed, the Pharaoh was dominant in the land, and he made its people into factions, and he made a group of them weaklings. He put the Egyptians over them. He enslaved them. يستضعف طائفة منهم يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم. He used to slaughter their sons and spare their women. إنه كان من المفسدين. Indeed, he was among those who make corruption. And what men they did keep alive, they assigned them the demeaning jobs that the Egyptians themselves would not want to take. So they were builders, they were farmers, and they used to do the dirty work for the Egyptians. And Allah Ta'ala, He willed to relieve those Israelites from the oppression and slavery and murder that was happening and all the other crimes that were happening against them while they were in Egypt. And the reason why the Pharaoh started killing their males is that he saw a dream that disturbed him, that as if a fire had come from the direction of Jerusalem until it reached Egypt. It engulfed their houses and their buildings and burned it all, and burned the Copts and spared the children of Israel. So when he woke up, he was greatly disturbed by what he saw, and so he gathered his fortune tellers and his magicians and his astrologers, and he asked them to explain his dream for him. They said to him, "This dream represents a boy that shall be born from amongst the children of Israel, who will be the destruction of the people of Egypt, and you shall lose your kingdom because of him. He will make you and your people leave the town, and he will change your religion. And now his time is upon you." The Pharaoh commanded for every Israelite newborn boy to be killed. He summoned all of the midwives. No boy shall be born from the children of Israel except that you women shall kill those boys. And he threatened them, and he appointed officers over them. And so those midwives were fulfilling the command of the Pharaoh, killing every newborn male out of fear of the Pharaoh. He had commanded for the killing of all the newborn males at his time, and for the boys that shall be born after them. And so his evil armies, they took to obeying, fulfilling his command, torturing the pregnant women, to the extent that a woman among them, she would have a miscarriage out of the mere fear. But then, when they killed so many of those Israelites, some of the nobles in the society, they came to the Pharaoh and they said to him, "The old men of the children of Israel are dying, and you command for the killing of their children. And we are about to run out of slaves. Who will do the work after they are gone?" So upon that, the Pharaoh, he gave a new order, which was to kill the boys of the Israelites during a year, and then to spare them for a year, and like that. Then to kill them for a year, and then to spare them for a year. This act of the Pharaoh was an indication of his stupidity. Either he believed his fortune tellers or not. If he believed them, it's inevitable, and whatever he does is futile. And if he didn't believe them, then why go through the effort of killing those boys? And so it was during this time that Moses was born, alayhi salatu wassalam, as well as his brother Aaron. And so he is Musa, Moses, son of Amram, ibn Yashar, ibn Kohath, ibn Lawi or Lawa, son of Levi, ibn Yaqub, ibn Ishaq, ibn Ibrahim, son of Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham. And his mother is Yuhana Jochebed, and she lived by the river. And as for his brother Harun, Aaron, he is his full brother, so the lineage is the same. We're going to go with the saying that Harun was the older one. It was said that Harun was born 3 years before Musa, in which the boys were allowed to live. So Harun was born without the threat of being killed. And as for Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam, his mother was very distressed. And she felt very hopeless and weak and helpless and afraid. As soon as she knew she was pregnant, she was very, very careful, very cautious. And the signs of her pregnancy did not appear. And when the time for delivery came close, she was very sad, and she was very afraid, and she was very depressed. Allah inspired her to muster up her resolve and to not be afraid and to not be sad. And He inspired her that this baby is a special one, and he shall have a great status, and that Allah Ta'ala will protect him and then make him among the messengers. She gave birth to him, secretly of course, وأوحينا إلى أم موسى أن أرضعيه. And we inspired the mother of Moses, nurse him. So she would do that. فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. And if you fear for him, O mother of Moses, if some soldiers or officers would come around, then put him in the river. She had a box that she prepared. She would put him in that basket and she would tie him to like a tree or something so that he wouldn't drift away. And she had that box lined with cotton for his comfort. And like that, he would be hidden until the coast was clear. And do not be afraid and do not be sad. إِنَّا رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Indeed, we shall return him to you and make him among the messengers. So all of that is what she felt was her case, in the case of her son. Without her having a revelation, she was not a prophet. And she had a great reliance on Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and she trusted Allah Ta'ala to protect him. So it happened that one day she did put him in that box or that basket, but she forgot to tie it. And so the water took him, and his little basket was going up in the waves and down in the waves until he got to the palace of the Pharaoh. When he drifted into that area, the women were busy at the banks of the river when they spotted the box. So they took it and they thought that it had money or that it had some precious things in it. And they took it to the wife of the Pharaoh, whose name was Asiya. Her name was said with an alif at the end. Then it would be Asiya. And it was said with a ta marbuta. So then it would be Asiya. Asiya. The daughter of Muzahim. And this woman was an Israelite also. And she was secretly a believer. The wife of Pharaoh, who was secretly a Muslimah, she was afraid of exposing her religion and then being tortured by the Pharaoh because he was ruthless. So it didn't matter if she was his wife or she wasn't his wife. When she looked in before she opened it, she could see like there's light in there. And she opened it up, and behold, she found in there a very beautiful baby. And she loved him as soon as she laid eyes on him. So she took him to the Pharaoh. And when he saw him, he said, "Kill this child." وَقَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ فِرْعَوْنَ قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ لِي وَلَكَ. And the wife of the Pharaoh said, "He can be the eye's delight for me and for you. لَا تَقْتُلُوهُ. Don't kill him. عَسَىٰ أَن يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. Maybe he will benefit us, or maybe we can take him as a child." And she was a barren woman. وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And they had no idea. They did not know what the future held. And so the Pharaoh, he answered her. He gave her her request. And he said, "The eye's delight for you. As for me, I have no need for him." The wife of the Pharaoh, she started looking for women to nurse this new baby. And whenever she would bring a woman to nurse him, he would not take the breast. And they became confused about his matter. because eventually he became very hungry and he would cry a lot, and she feared that he would die. It had been many days and he was not being fed. So she was so concerned that she personally started looking for someone to nurse this baby. And during this time, وَأَصْبَحَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا, the heart of the mother of Moses became empty and void. And she was so depressed at the loss of her baby that it was like she was going to be insane, because she was missing her dear baby. وَقَالَتْ لِأُخْتِهِ قُصِّيهِ, and she said to his sister, find out about him. So she looked for him, and she had heard that the Pharaoh found a baby in a box in the river, and that baby was in his palace. So she went there and she saw him from afar. فَبَصُرَتْ بِهِ عَنْ جُنُبٍ وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ, then she saw him from afar, while her being his sister, they did not realize. She didn't go close because she didn't want the soldiers to suspect her. So she followed up, and she, by her ways, she found out what the story was. He would not accept a single breast, and that all he does is cry. وَحَرَّمْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَرَاضِعَ مِنْ قَبْلُ, and before that, Allah made it so that baby Moses refused to nurse from any of the women. It was said that it had been 8 days and he still hadn't eaten. So when she knew what the situation was, she stepped to Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh, and she proposed to the wife of Pharaoh to bring to her a reliable woman who would take care of this baby for a fee. فَقَالَتْ هَلْ أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَىٰ أَهْلِ بَيْتٍ يَكْفُلُونَهُ لَكُمْ. His sister entered between the women who are attempting to nurse him and said, should I point you to a family that will take care of him for you? When she came and she made that suggestion, it was said she knows him. But Allah Ta'ala enabled her to talk her way out of being discovered. So Asiya, she accepted. And then the sister of Musa, she went back happy because she had good news for her mother. She told her mother about the story. As soon as the mother of Musa heard that, she became so happy and so relieved. So she went to the Pharaoh's palace. So when she went in there, she took that baby, and immediately Musa, he took to the breast and he began suckling. And he drank until he was satisfied. So Asiya was so happy, and she requested for Musa's mother to stay in the palace, to live there and take care of the boy, to be his nanny. She promised her all sorts of gifts and benefits. إِن كَادَتْ لَتُبْدِي بِهِ لَوْلَا أَن رَّبَطْنَا عَلَى قَلْبِهَا. She was about to expose him had it not been that Allah strengthened her heart. لَوْلَا أَن رَّبَطْنَا عَلَى قَلْبِهَا لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, so that she could be among the believers. But Musa, the mother of Musa, she requested from Asiya that Asiya accepts for her to take Musa back to her own house, because she was not able to abandon her house and her children. And so Asiya, she didn't see that she had any option but to accept that. And she wanted to be able to see Musa from time to time, Asiya. And like that, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave Musa back to his mother, just like he inspired her to believe that that's what would happen. فَرَدَدْنَاهُ إِلَىٰ أُمِّهِ كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا وَلَا تَحْزَنْ. We then returned him to his mother so that she would be happy and not be sad. وَلِتَعْلَمَ أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. And so that she would know that Allah's promise is true. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. However, most of them do not know. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he stayed with his mother and she nursed him until she weaned him off of the breast. And then she took him back to them. And then he grew up in the Pharaoh's palace with the Pharaoh's wife who loved him so much. And they saw the beauty that he had and the presence that he had, the charisma and the all that he possessed. And they took him as a child. He was treated very well there. And he lived like the sons of the kings live. And he would ride in the Pharaoh's procession alongside the Pharaoh. Then one day the Pharaoh was riding in his procession and Moses was not with him. Alayhi salatu wassalam. وَدَخَلَ الْمَدِينَةَ عَلَى حِينِ غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا. And he entered the town at the time when its people are unaware. And while Moses was going around in the streets and it was siesta time, meaning the time when the people shut their stores down, everybody takes a break, people take a nap. فَوَجَدَ فِيهَا رَجُلَيْنِ يَقْتَتِلَانِ. There he found two men fighting. هَذَا مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ عَدُوِّهِ. This one was from his own party, meaning he was an Israelite, and that one was from amongst his enemies. And that Copt transgressed against the Israelite. So when Musa passed by this altercation, فَاسْتَغَاثَهُ الَّذِي مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ عَلَى الَّذِي مِنْ عَدُوِّهِ فَوَكَزَهُ مُوسَى فَقَضَى عَلَيْهِ. Then the one from his party sought his help against the one from amongst his enemies. So Moses punched him and he accidentally killed him. So then Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, after he killed that man, he felt very bad. قَالَ هَذَا مِنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ. He said, this is the result of the instigations of the devil. إِنَّهُ عَدُوٌّ مُضِلٌّ مُبِينٌ. Certainly he is a blatant, misleading enemy of mankind. Then he became very afraid in the town. He feared for himself from Pharaoh and his followers, and so he was watching out, listening out, being on alert, alayhi salatu wassalam. Because if they knew that he killed that man, they would kill him for helping an Israelite against an Egyptian. And then if they find out that Musa did that, then they would say, Musa, he must be one of those people. He must be one of those Israelites. But nobody saw Musa kill that man except the Israelite who was there. Alayhi salatu wassalam. But the dead man was found, and that was reported to the Pharaoh. And they were very angry that one of their own had been killed. And so they said to the Pharaoh, we want revenge against the children of Israel. They killed one of our own. Give us our right over them, O Pharaoh. So the Pharaoh said, bring me his killer and bring me someone who will testify against him so that I can give you your right over him. And so they were searching through the town for the killer of this Egyptian, investigating and asking, trying to get to the bottom of the caper. And then what happened? The very next day, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he passed by that same Israelite fighting another Egyptian. Then that Israelite called out to Musa asking for help. So Musa went to help him, but he was very mad at him. So when that Israelite saw the anger of Musa, and Musa was approaching to help him, but he didn't know Musa wanted to help him. All he saw was that Musa was very angry. And Musa had said to him, alayhi salatu wasalam, Innaka laghawiyyun mubin. He said, you are a big fool. You're getting in trouble all the time. You're fighting with these people all the time. So he thought that Musa wanted to get him, not to get the Egyptian. فَلَمَّا أَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَبْطِشَ بِالَّذِي هُوَ عَدُوٌّ لَهُمَا. So then when Musa wanted to get the one who was their enemy, but that Israelite didn't know that that's what Musa wanted to do, that Israelite said, قال يا موسى أتريد أن تقتلني كما قتلت نفسا بالأمس. He said, oh Musa, would you want to kill me like you killed somebody yesterday? So he just blew a spot open right there and snitched on him. So that Egyptian who was there, when he heard that, he left to go report it. So then they knew that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was the one who killed that man. They sent officers out to go and apprehend him. وَجَاءَ رَجُلٌ مِّنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ يَسْعَى. And a man from the extent of the city came hurrying. قال يا موسى إن الملأ يأتمرون بك ليقتلوك. He said, Moses, surely the council is deliberating over executing you. فَاخْرُجْ إِنِّي لَكَ مِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. Get out of town. Certainly I sincerely advise you. فخرج منها خائفا يترقب. So he left the town fearful. قال رب نجني من القوم الظالمين. He said, my Lord, save me from the unjust people. And so Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he went towards the town of Midian, walking on his 2 feet, without any supplies, without any luggage, without an animal to ride, eating from the plants of the ground. وَلَمَّا تَوَجَّهَ تِلْقَاءَ مَدْيَنَ قَالَ عَسَى رَبِّي أَنْ يَهْدِيَنِي سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. So when he headed towards the town of Midian, and he didn't know the way, he said, perhaps my Lord will guide me the straight way of the path. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he was walking for 8 days when he finally reached Midian, touched by hunger and exhaustion, alayhi salatu wasalam. And so he sat under the shade of a tree, and he saw 2 women, sisters, tending to ghanam. In Arabic refers to sheep and goats. ولما ورد ماء مدين وجد عليه أمة من الناس يسقون. And when he came to the water of Midian, he found many people congregated, watering their flocks. وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمُ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ. And he found off to the side 2 women having trouble keeping their flock under control, wanting to let their animals drink in a big well or a big water hole that was there. And at the time, the shepherds were also there with their animals, their flocks, and those shepherds were men. And these 2 sisters, they were having a hard time with their own flock, trying to keep them under control and trying to prevent them from mixing with the animals of the men who were there. And Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, he saw the trouble that those 2 women were having, and he felt for them. So he asked them for the reason of their being shepherds. قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. He said, what is it that you want? قَالَتَا لَا نَسْقِي حَتَّى يُصْدِرَ الرِّعَاء. They said, we are unable to water our flock until the shepherds go back. وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. And our father is a very old man who does not have any male children who could tend to his flocks for him. And when the men had finished with their watering their animals, they replaced a huge boulder, a boulder that cannot be lifted except by 10 men. So he stepped to that large boulder that was put over the mouth of the well, and he lifted it all by himself, and he helped them by watering their flock for them. Then when they were all done, he personally replaced that boulder. And then when he finished doing what he was doing, he went back and rested under the shade of that tree. فَسَقَى لَهُمَا ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى إِلَى الظِّلِّ. So he watered the flock for them, and then he turned to go sit in the shade. فَقَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي لِمَا أَنزَلْتَ إِلَيَّ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٌ. He said, my Lord, certainly I am needy of anything that you bring down upon me of good. And made dua to Allah, and thanked Allah, and mentioned Allah, and praised Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So after Musa alayhi salatu wasalam watered that ghanam for those 2 women, they went back to their father. The scholars, they differed about this sheikh, this old man that's mentioned in the ayah. So it was said that he is indeed Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam, the one who is famous. And this is famous to many. Some said that Allah Ta'ala gave Shu'aib a long life after destroying the people of Midian, that he lived until Musa met him alayhi salatu wassalam, and then Musa married his daughter. And it was said that this is another man named Shu'aib. And other than that was said. We'll go with the saying that was Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salatu wassalam. So they went back to their father, Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salatu wassalam, swiftly and informed him about the news of this man. And they sought from him to honor him for the good deed that he did for them. And Shu'aib was very happy to hear about that. And so he sent one of his daughters to go fetch Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. فجاءته إحداهما تمشي على استحياء. Then one of them came to him walking shyly. قالت إن أبي يدعوك ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا. She said, certainly my father invites you so to award you for the watering that you did for us. So he got up and he went with her. She was leading the way until the wind blew and pressed her clothing against her body, and her form became apparent. And so Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, he said to her, Imshi khalfi wan'ati lit-tariq. Walk behind me and point the way out for me. He said, certainly I hate for the wind to blow and then to describe your body. And so she walked behind him and pointed the way out to him until they got to her father. And when he met him, he told him all about the whole story from his birth until his having to leave Egypt. فلما جاءه وقص عليه القصص قال لا تخف. Then when he came to their father and told him the story, their father said, fear not. نجوت من القوم الظالمين. You have escaped the unjust people. Certainly the Pharaoh has no authority in Midian. قالت إحداهما يا أبت استأجره. One of the two women said, oh, my father, hire him. إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. Indeed, the best one to hire is this extraordinarily strong and trustworthy one. And she was asked, what do you know of his strength? And so she talked about how he lifted the boulder from its place. And what she meant by his trustworthiness was his instructing her to walk behind him and to point out the way. So her father, Shu'aib, he was very happy with the reliability and trustworthiness of Musa and his precaution. He liked him a lot. And he married Musa to his daughter, the one who went and brought Musa back. It was said that her name was Safura. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala said, قال إني أريد أن أنكحك إحدى ابنتي هاتين. He said to Moses, I want to give you one of these two daughters of mine in marriage. And some of the scholars said that the way this is worded implies that he had other daughters, but that he was offering one of these two in particular. على أن تأجرني ثمانية حجج. He said, in exchange of your working for me for 8 years. فإن أتممت 10 فمن عندك. If you complete 10 years, then that would be a favor from you. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أَشُقَّ عَلَيْكَ, and I do not want to burden you by requiring the longer of the 2 times. You can take the shorter one. سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. You shall find me, God willing, among those who are easy to work with and they deal fairly. قَالَ ذَلِكَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ. Moses said, that is an agreement between us. أَيَّمَا الْأَجَلَيْنِ قَضَيْتُ فَلَا عُدْوَانَ عَلَيَّ. Whichever of the 2 durations I fulfill, there is no transgression on my part. وَاللَّهُ عَلَى مَا نَقُولُ وَكِيلٌ. And Allah is, over what we say, a witness. And so Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, he stayed with his father-in-law Shu'aib as a shepherd for 10 years. In the land of Midian. Every prophet at some point in his life had the job of a shepherd. Then Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he longed for his family and he wanted to visit them in Egypt. So he went with his family and traveled. One night, which was a cold, dark night, he was with his family. He had 2 children, and he had his ghanam that he had acquired while he was in Midian. And he got lost with his family. So there he was, not knowing which way to go, and his wife was pregnant. And she was under the distress of contractions. And it was raining and thundering. And the lightning was flashing, and Musa, he wanted to light a fire for his family, and he wasn't able to do so. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ آنَسَ مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ نَارًا. So when Moses completed his duty, and he left with his family, he spotted a light on the side of the mountain. قَالَ لِأَهْلِهِ امْكُثُوا. He said to his family, stay put. إِنِّي آنَسْتُ نَارًا. I have spotted a fire. لَعَلِّي آتِيكُم مِّنْهَا بِخَبَرٍ أَوْ جَذْوَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَصْطَلُونَ. Perhaps I will come back to you from it with news, or with a firebrand, so that you may get warm. A firebrand means like you get some fire and brings it back on a stick, for example. He went towards that light, and when he got close to the mountain, in a valley called Tuwa, he saw a great light coming down from the clouds to an enormous green tree. And he was confused there, alayhi salatu wassalam. And it was then that he heard the eternal speech of his Lord, that speech of God which is not letters or sounds or language. It does not start and it does not stop. It's not Arabic, it's not Hebrew. فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا نُودِيَ يَا مُوسَى إِنِّي أَنَا رَبُّكَ فَاخْلَعْ نَعْلَيْكَ إِنَّكَ بِالْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوًى. Indeed, it is I am your Lord. So take off your sandals. Indeed, You are in the holy valley of Tuwa. وَأَنَا اخْتَرْتُكَ فَاسْتَمِعْ لِمَا يُوحَى. And I have selected you, Moses. So listen to what is revealed. إِنَّنِي أَنَا اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدْنِي وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي. Indeed, it is I am Allah. No one is God but I, so worship me and perform the prayer for my remembrance. وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى. What is that in your right hand, O Moses? That is a question to bring comfort to the heart of Musa. قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي. He said, it is my stick or my staff. I lean upon it and I beat the trees with it for my flock. وَلِيَ فِيهَا مَآرِبُ أُخْرَى. And I get other benefits also from this stick of mine. It was said about this stick that Adam alayhi salatu wasalam came down with it from paradise. And it was said that Jibreel gave it to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and it was said that Shu'aib gave it to him. It was 10 cubits long. The top of the stick branched off into 2 parts. And he used to hang his things on this stick, like his bow and his arrows. And when the night would come in, the head of this stick would illuminate for him like a candle. And if he wanted to drink from a well, his stick would extend down to the depths of the well, and then he would be able to scoop water like that, and it would bring the water back up for him, and he could drink from it. And if he was in the land where there was no well, he could stick his staff down into the ground like a peg, and it would burrow down into the ground, and then he would pull it out and the water would spring out from it. And that he could also implant it into the ground and it would spread for him and he could take shade from it. And that if he wanted a fruit, he could plunge it down into the ground and then it would sprout some leaves and fruits and he could take from it and eat what he wanted. And that it would shoo away from him the bugs and the harmful creatures, and that if any of his animals got too far, it would go and catch that animal and bring it back. And if some animals would try to come to attack his flock, it would go and fend off those animals. And that it used to talk to Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and hold conversations with him when he would be walking. وَأَنْ أَلْقِ عَصَاكَ. O Musa, throw your stick. فَلَمَّا رَآهَا تَهْتَزُّ كَأَنَّهَا جَانٌّ وَلَّى مُدْبِرًا وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ. So then when he saw it shaking, vibrating, that stick started transforming, wiggling and squirming into an enormous serpent that could move about, very horrifying to the eye, and it had great fangs. He turned away, walla mudbira. He turned his back from it, walam yu'aqib, and he didn't even look back. So it frightened him, but that was not the fear of a coward. That was a natural fear. He basically saw a monster right in front of him. Ya Musa aqbil wa la takhaf. Oh Musa, Come forward and fear not.
Innaka minal aminin.
Indeed, you are safe.
قال خذها ولا تخف.
Musa, take hold of it and fear not.
سنعيدها سيرتها الأولى.
We shall make it return back to its original state. And so Musa, he put his hand into its mouth, between its teeth. It turned right back into a stick in his hand. Alayhi salatu wassalam.
وأدخل يدك في جيبك تخرج بيضاء من غير سوء.
And insert your hand into the opening of your shirt. It will come out white, without a blemish, and shining like the moon. And it was white, not like it was sick.
في 9 آيات إلى فرعون وقومه.
Go, Musa, to the Pharaoh with these 2 signs out of 9 signs.
إنهم كانوا قوما فاسقين.
Indeed, they have been nefarious people. And so Allah spoke to his slave and his prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and commanded him to go to the Pharaoh to call him to the worship of Allah Ta'ala alone and to release the children of Israel. Upon that, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he sought from his Lord to send with him his brother Harun.
رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي.
O my Lord, expand my chest and make my faith firm and make my resolve strong.
وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي.
And facilitate my affair for me. Make it easy for me.
وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِّسَانِي.
And untie a knot from my tongue. Clarify my speech for me, my Lord.
وَيَضِيقُ صَدْرِي وَلَا يَنطَلِقُ لِسَانِي فَأَرْسِلْ إِلَىٰ هَارُونَ.
And my heart gets very disappointed when someone belies the religion, O Allah. وَيَضِيقُ صَدْرِي. I get very upset when someone commits blasphemy.
وَلَا يَنطَلِقُ لِسَانِي.
And when I hear it, my tongue does not utter as I want it to. And his speech was not unintelligible, and he did not stutter. He had a heaviness in his tongue, or a slight slowness in his speech because of something that happened to him as a child. So he asked Allah Ta'ala to remove that for him.
وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِّسَانِي.
And untie a knot from my tongue.
يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي.
So that they would understand what I say.
وَاجْعَل لِّي وَزِيرًا مِّنْ أَهْلِي.
And grant me an advisor from my family.
هَارُونَ أَخِي.
Aaron, my brother.
أُشْدُدْ بِهِ أَزْرِي.
Make him have my back.
وَأَشْرِكْهُ فِي أَمْرِي.
And make him share in my affair.
كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ كَثِيرًا وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا إِنَّكَ كُنْتَ بِنَا بَصِيرًا.
So that we may glorify you a lot, and so that we may mention you and remember you a lot. Indeed, you see us in all that we do.
قَالَ قَدْ أُوتِيتَ سُؤْلَكَ يَا مُوسَى.
Allah said, you have been given your request, O Moses.
قال رب إني أخاف أن يكذبون.
He said, in acceptance of his mission, "My Lord, surely I fear that they will belie me. I am concerned about that.
ولهم علي ذنب فأخاف أن يقتلون.
And they hold against me what they consider to be the crime of murder. So I fear that they will kill me."
قال كلا.
Allah said, "Definitely not.
فاذهبا بآياتنا.
Go forth the two of you with our signs.
إنا معكم مستمعون.
Indeed, we support you and we hear all."